Hey guys, welcome to Landline Chats. This podcast is all about powerful and vulnerable conversation. Just real honest chats with incredible people that I know will inspire you. I'm so happy you're here, so just sit back, relax, and let's chat. Well, first of all, this has been like such a long time coming. I'm like, how long have we been talking about this for?
Like 2 years. Just kidding.
Yeah, I mean, I think in my brain, it quite possibly could be 2 years because I've been thinking about this for so long. But I mean, the first thing I want to say is just thank you for being here. You know, this is Landline Chat's first episode, and I couldn't be more excited to have you as my first guest. So, yeah. So, I mean, a little bit of like intro. We met at Hanzo, right? And I think I remember. So we both worked for, or you still work for Hanzo, but for a scissor company and selling scissors and all that good stuff. And I know for you, and at least for myself, I'm so drawn to people that have this like very unique style, and so that was one of the first things that I remember about you. Yeah.
Same. I remember, well, first of all, thanks for having me on your first episode. I'm excited to be, I feel privileged to be the first one to be asked to share space with you and help in any way I can to get this going. Good, awesome conversations. It just feels good to have something like that out there for platform for us people that just have things to say and show off like our talents and our journeys like that. So thank you, first of all.
Yes.
And, for us first meeting, I remember we were just talking offline about Brittany, and she was like kind of the connection sort of with me for a second, and she said, "You're gonna love my girl Kiki," blah blah blah. She saw our fashion and our odd way of sharing our fashion, I guess you could say, for some people. And then when we met, like, oh yeah, totally. And I still admire what you do and how you do it, and it's totally yours. And that's a big thing for me, is helping people, and in myself, finding your authenticity in fashion. So
yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that's one of the things. It's like, and you and I've had this conversation several times, but I grew up in church, and I had to dress a very specific way and always be appropriate. And I didn't feel like I really like knew who I was. But once I started kind of diving into my own personal style, that's sort of where I started to find a lot of confidence in myself. And also just, it's such a fun way to express yourself, and I mean, that was, one of the things, like I said, that I appreciated about you, that I was just like, this dude's got freaking style. Like, he's like not holding back. He's not afraid to like wear certain things. And that can be really intimidating for people. And so, and that I used to do styling too. And so when you told me that you were doing personal styling, I was like, okay, we need to talk about this for sure. So when did you start doing that? You started personal styling just for men, right?
Yes. So it's to answer your question, probably about 6 months ago. But like, as in like creating a program, having modules, and like having a step-by-step of finding your inner light through fashion and confidence. But I feel like I've been giving tips and tricks pretty much my whole life, like either from my family, brothers, my mom would always ask me, does this look right? To all the way like my wife now. The cool thing is we're back and forth because she's a fashionista as well. And I ask her, and then all the way to my 3 and 6 year old, I'll ask them, does this hat look funny? And they'll say yes or no. And I go off their vibe. I've been doing it for a while, but like personally, with like other people that are not in my circle, and they eventually become part of my circle, about 6 months, and it's been pretty cool. I'm slowly but surely going through it. It's like one of my chapters and hats that I take on in my journey.
Yeah. So I guess like my question for you with that is what made you want to do that? Like what got you to, and you specifically work with men for the most part with this, is that right?
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah. So, I mean, what inspired you to do this? I have to hear the backstory for this.
Yeah, so I feel like in men's work, so back up, I don't know, I felt like I've always had this gentle heart,
Mm.
covered with bricks, and every trauma, someone making fun of me or lack of, or how I talk to myself, and me making fun of myself, I would just add a brick into my heart, and eventually it was hard to like really get in relationship wise, and
Mm.
so it I found my love of my life, which is my wife now, and it's been a really like mirrored relationship. 12 years of us being together, and 5 kids, but like in the beginning, I was still this like Southern California boy that did hair and was in a band. And I say boy because I was definitely a boy. And it took her still to this day, and like we're still working on stuff always, but like her her heart to overcome my heart. And so it started with a female. So if you go into men's work, like been in different spaces with men, a lot of the reasons why those men are there, including myself, was a lady. It could have been a mom, a girlfriend, like a friend of a girl, a partner, a wife. It's always the feminine, most cases, that like you hit rock bottom and they're like, hey, here's a space for you. You need to work on yourself. And it's like, my wife calls it the Kali energy, which sometimes, and I did quote unquote, sometimes I think she overused Kali, but it's calling forth the death of the ego, the unhealthy ego. And that takes a very strong feminine energy to help guide that for the masculine energy. So it started with me and my wife's relationship, and then it was getting rough, and she could have left me a couple times, and I was like, that's it. Like I am a nice person, but like when it comes to relationship and private and like people knowing my shadows, I was always defending, and I was very mean. I was the opposite of what everyone knew me as. And I'm glad to say I was a dick. Because I own it, and like I did the work to be able to say like I did that, and I still have things like I was talking offline with you, like this relationship with my teenage boy Riker. Like I've done some damage there, and so the men's work has really guided me into finding myself and my purpose and who I really am and my real confidence, not like cocky confidence, not like I got this success confidence, just like this me. And it's okay that I do have a shadow, and it's actually a partner with me because I understand it now and I can let it go. So it turned into a lot of this shadow. I have my moments of the dark night of the soul, but like the darkest night of my soul was like the beginning, sitting in ceremony with peyote, doing sweat lodges, just finding all these for me to like really dig deep. And then there was that part of my journey, and I was searching the next thing, the next book, the next guru. And then the last 3-ish years, I finally have been going to different ceremonies and stuff like that. But now it's integration. And soon as I found the integration of all the work that I've done, the story I've created, that it was hard for me to mingle hair and fashion with the newfound me. Like you come down, like it's the thing, it's the integration part. You come down the hill from a retreat and everyone's like, why am I even breathing? You like called integration because you like know something, like you're knowing something, like nobody else explain it. So it was hard for me to even like keep people in my chair when I was doing hair, not because I just didn't want to do it. I was just like, there's a bigger calling for me than just hair, the way I was looking at it. And I'm no way I can mix these two together, because it's like fashion. So like
Right.
especially the high end fashion. You know, like it's just so catty in some places, and it's
Oh
like
yeah.
very look like oh you it's surface. It's very surface.
Very
Um,
surface.
Same with
You
hair.
and
But
you and I had that conversation, you know, because I think so many people do kind of relate fashion as just being something that's a superficial sort of thing. But, you know, I think fellow creatives can kind of recognize it as a way, a really fun way to express yourself. And so, you know, some people have, there's a lot of fear around it, I think. And this is, I think, I don't know if you remember this conversation that we talked about a while ago, but it's sometimes you can kind of tell a little bit about how someone feels about themselves based on, you know, what they're wearing. And you know, and some people just don't give a shit, which I love. You know, I kind of love that. It's just like, this is me, this is who I am. And I'm totally here for that, you know. But I think one of the things that when I would do personal styling, I would notice, and I know you've heard this, but it's like people have said, I don't know if I can pull that off. And it's like, okay, well, let's talk about that. What, you know, why do you think that you can't wear this? You know, it looks absolutely incredible on you, but like, let's talk about why you think you can't wear it, you know? And it always kind of came down to just a self-worth issue. You know, it's like, I don't feel cool enough to wear this
yeah,
type of thing. So,
that's part of my. I don't like calling it program because it sounds like programming, but it's
mhm,
part of my work. I'll call it workshop.
mhm,
My workshop. It really we dive into. It's not just pairing somebody up with something that looks good on their bone structure
mhm,
and the skin tone of their color, and like this is a good color for you, this is a good fit for you. It's like, why is it a good fit for you? Because, and then why don't you, like you're saying, why, what's the core issue here in your confidence and who you are, like what's yours? And then you find your, we end up finding your ideal piece. So it could be like, for me it's hat, glasses, and accessories. Like everywhere
mhm,
I go, this is just how I identify in fashion. And it's a good release for me as a creative
yeah,
outside of hair. Just like people like men like to be in the fantasy football under a hood of a car, whatever. I don't. So these are my
mhm,
things. I get wake up in the morning and go to my closet and get to, it's the creative. I get to pick what I get to wear because everything in
yeah,
my closet is authentically me. Like
mhm,
there's nothing I don't closet. So we go through that too. We shift through like shitty like, and then we like, why are you holding on to that? Like
mhm,
what's the story behind, you know,
yeah,
clutter, or what's the story behind holding on to shit that you don't even need, you know?
yeah,
And so how is that showing up in your life? So
yeah,
we kind of break down all these different things in the calls, and I give you guys, I call it a stretch, something that you may not want to do, you know,
mhm,
and then at the end, other side of that, in most cases, you either find the answer or what you like or don't like. Either
yeah,
way, you're finding something yourself, and it like it was really cool how I was able to tie it into fashion, and it's like, oh, this is it. It definitely took life coaches. I have life coaches. I have a coach. Like I have different things that people I work with. I can't do. Nobody could do stuff like this alone. Especially the shadow work. It's a tribe effort. So yeah, it's there's a lot that is said in how you dress, and so it just helps you understand who you are, authentic, like with authentically, and then you have more of a perception on your day to day dress on how to just be aware and present on
yeah,
like, oh man, I feel shitty, so I'm just gonna wear a hoodie.
right,
That's what I'm gonna do. Like
yeah,
today, the
yeah,
fall, I was kind of frantic with my kids, and I literally was telling my wife I'm doing the Zoom outfit where the top of my body's ready, but I'm just wearing whatever on the bottom.
yeah,
So it's
exactly.
like it's just my life, and I support it, and it's fine.
I love that. One of the things that I kind of wanted to dive a little bit back into was talking about the retreats that you've done, because I think, you know, initially when I wanted to start this and, you know, I told you, I was like, I really want you on as a guest. I will say one of the things that I first noticed about you in person when you know, I saw you at the office, last year. Gosh, it was so long ago already. But being in the hair industry, I'm not a stylist myself, but I was in the hair industry for 5 years selling scissors. And you do notice that there's so much ego, especially with the educators. It's like, I mean, obviously there's incredible artists out there that are doing really great things, but there's a lot of ego in that. And I think one of the first things that I remembered about you, besides your fashion sense, was just your overall presence was so calm, but also just so powerful. Um, because I think the first thing that I thought, I was like, he's doing what he's doing for the right reasons.
Hmm.
Um, and there wasn't ego involved in that. Um, and that's something that is very different to see in a man. Because I know you and I've talked about this, but um, there's so much pressure for men to just always be strong and just this sort of brick wall of no emotion and not expressing themselves or really being vulnerable. And it's a huge issue. I mean, so many people are suffering, but I do think that there's so many men out there that are afraid to just kind of break those walls down and even dive into any sort of healing for themselves, or even show any sort of vulnerability. And but that was something that I noticed about you that really resonated with me. And I was like, wow, this man really seems to know himself really well. He's confident in who he is. And you just exuded this sort of presence that was just really safe. And you know I think for you and I both, we have people that sort of just feel safe with us and come to us and share things with us, and you have that presence about you. So when you started doing the retreats and everything, I'm curious, what was the scariest part of starting that for you, and how did you push getting past that and just saying, I need to change, I need to work on myself, or become more vulnerable, or whatever that looks like for you?
Wow. Yeah, there's so many things that came up in that, and I'm
I
just
think
like,
I
oh,
just I think I just asked you like 6 questions. Sorry.
it's. I feel like this, like I said in the beginning, this is an awesome container and space for this to be heard or said. Um, so the last one you just asked me, what it's continued. It's the hero's journey. I'm always evolving, or at least that's I've committed to this work. So I feel like uh, going back to like how you felt me, I was nervous at the dojo, like dude, because of the high ego, you
Hmm.
know, like
Hmm.
the highest of high. Like Hanzo's amazing, and they
Yeah.
draw amazing people. So, and amazing doesn't always have to be a conscious person or like the woke. That's a whole nother conversation, is maturity versus woke. But
Yeah.
like, um, so they're still good people, like and
Mhm.
like they're
Absolutely.
of like what they do in hair. So I was just very like, whoa. So it's cool that you saw that in me, because I was very introverted in these.
Yeah, I would have thought that. I would have
Yeah,
never thought that you were nervous at all. I was just like, this dude's chill as fuck. I mean, that I literally was just like, what a presence. And I mean, yeah, it was really cool. And that's when, I mean, that was before I was kind of, I had thought about landline chats before it was even landline chats, but I immediately was like, I want to talk to Earl. I mean, people need to hear his story.
oh,
That's
thank you.
cool.
Yeah, that's cool. So like, thank you, because I do have, like anyone else, an inner critic. I have these things that go in the chitter chat. So all this work that I've done and I continue to do and I've committed to helps me. It's just tools that help me show up authentic with myself and how my truth.
Mm.
And to even find that is what the work is. A lot of people run, from my experience, a lot of people, including myself, would autopilot and not know my
Mm.
truth, show up nice and happy, but like the
Sure.
depth that I felt was because, like you said, it's like on that road, it's something about somebody who, even in the beginning of their journey, that they're committed to this work, that you just feel like,
Hmm.
even what level they are in this work, like you're just like, whoa, this is a really, so you kind of met me in the middle of it, but like this is a dude that like knows something, you know.
Yeah.
And so the last question was, what was my edge, pretty much, and how did I pass that edge and the fear? It's always going to be, even now, like
Mm-hmm.
being vulnerable, like all my
Yeah.
pro things as a man, like you were saying, like no emotions,
Mm-hmm.
tough, even women and men, like I have to be tough in front of both, you know, like as a
Yeah.
man. So
So much pressure.
so much pressure.
Yeah.
And so being so used to doing that for so many years, it becomes a part of you. And to me, that's the hard thing to let go. And for a lot of people, is their story,
Mm-hmm.
like their programs and what they're so used to, because their ego, that's the ego. When it says death to ego, when someone says death to ego, it's not necessarily, to me, at least when I say it, it's not like death to ego. It's the ego part that doesn't work in
Right.
my journey, because ego is here to protect us and save us, and it's a very powerful tool once we learn our ego and partner with our ego. So a lot of that was death to ego, which is shadow and my kids work, like child work and uh, carpet work, wrestling, and a lot of that stuff was hard for me, and I just dove into it, you know.
Mm.
If it To this day, if it's hard for me, there's sometimes I don't just automatically go and do it, and that's my edge. But I've learned that living on my edge and knowing my edge
Mm.
and like real, that's my next level up. And
Yep.
so that was my fear, was going to my edge of shadow, or like admitting my shit, like
Mm.
ownership. Still working
Mm-hmm.
on that. Um, and saying sorry and being vulnerable,
Yeah.
and just naming my emotions. That's hard too, because as a man, I did, like, even with my wife, if I'm like coming home and I'm a better man, but I still come home and have a silence about myself, where like that energy that you feel with me is not there. um and feminine, they pick it up. They're
Oh.
amazing. That's their witchy ways.
Our
And so
super.
she picked it up, this superpower, right? And so
Yeah.
she'll pick it up, and I can't, when you're in a conscious relationship, you can't lie. I
Yeah.
mean, you can't beat around the
Well,
bush.
you can't hide.
Nothing,
I mean,
right?
that's the
So
biggest thing, is you can't hide.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
And I mean,
yeah.
most
So
people.
I'm learning. So I'm learning how to name the emotion, the
Mm.
anger, instead of projecting it. So as soon as I'm able to learn how to name it
Mhm.
and be with it, I'm not projecting and being a dick,
Yeah.
or having these, and that's one of the things that was hard for me as well too.
Yeah. Yeah. So do you think that, I mean, not everybody knows, but did you start to realize that you were just sort of in a cycle and you were just in a pattern that you needed to break out of, and you were like, okay, I'm done. Let's do
Yeah,
something.
yeah, and it's very. I want to put this disclaimer out there. It's very case by case,
Hmm.
your journey, and it's not a blue pill or a
Yeah.
red pill. It
Right.
takes it. It's not a race, they call it. It's a marathon. So
Right.
step by step. And for me, the step by step, I was trying to do it fast, and I tripped, and
Yeah.
like things just didn't work out. And my wife was expecting me to come back from these retreats a different man and all that
Right.
stuff. So I found out a couple uppercuts in life, and things happen. But it very is a steady, slow race. And if you're
Mhm.
committed and consistent, you'll find changes. Because I've even given up tobacco. I
Well,
don't smoke anymore because of all this. And alcohol is not really a thing for me. And I
yeah.
used to be a relationship, which kind of destroyed some things. And
Mm.
uh, along with like my lifestyle and the band and like hair, it was just like
Mm.
alcohol's everywhere.
Yeah, for
Now,
sure.
right? So now, of living that life and taking those baby steps, I'm able to break that will in certain areas. And the hard ones, I thought, which were hard, like tobacco was the hardest one. Like, um, now I feel like I could take on anything.
That's
And
awesome.
oh, I I could do more than I thought. Like, or sitting cold baths. Oh man, the cold plunges.
I love cold plunging.
I hate
Yeah.
it, but
You do?
my edge. So I
Yeah.
do, and then I'm like, whoa, I'm stronger than I actually am. Like my
Hmm.
brain knows this, but my body knows more. You know, my
Yeah.
heart knows. So yeah, just those baby steps help me break the cycle of my patterns that I was talking about earlier.
It's interesting that you were talking about that too, because I had this conversation with, I think, Brittany the other day, but it's so exciting because it takes people, some people will recognize a pattern in their life, and they'll do something about it. Some people don't even know that they're in a cycle or whatever it might be. But um, I remember my first this therapist that I met. His name was oh my gosh, what was his name? I'll think of it. But he was this old British dude that he was a mindfulness therapist. And it was my first time learning about mindfulness. But that was kind of like my intro into, healing. And I didn't know it at the time. But I felt like when I sort of overcame something that was like this weight on my back, I was like, oh, that feels good. And I think I always had this idea of therapy, or just like that all of a sudden magically, like what you were thinking that your wife thought, you'd come home and everything was like, you're a changed man. And
Yeah.
then healing's done. I'm a perfect person. Let's go. And I mean, it's just not, that's not what it is. It's a continuous process, and that you're always going to be evolving, and you really learn how to fight for yourself. But I think, people get addicted to, to their vices, whether it's smoking or alcohol or weed or whatever, I don't know what it is, like whatever it might be. There's so many different things. But as hard as the healing journey is, and diving into yourself, it's addicting too. I feel myself when I'm like, yo, I just leveled up on something, and I feel so proud of myself. So I'm like, what's the next thing that I need to work on? And exactly what you were saying too, when it's like something feels really uncomfortable, or something feels difficult that you're not, you're like, I don't really want to dive into this, but it's like, no, that's exactly what you should dive into. And people usually just want to shy away from it, but it's like, I mean, if you want change, you can't be moving the same way. So you have
Yeah.
to,
Yeah.
yeah.
Totally. That is us as humans, or spirits in this human experience, however you want to call it. Like, we do have connection to spirit and human
Yeah.
that gives us, like, we want to seek spirituality. We want to seek, that's where religion comes, because we're seeking something, right?
Right.
And then we're seeking something that helps us feel safe, and it's consistent, and it's
Mhm.
vices, right? So, like, create a healthy habit versus a bad habit, all that stuff, right? And so once you start tapping into like yourself, and whoa, this is working, I got into the hamster wheel of going to every retreat, going to this, doing that, doing this, without integrating it or embodying what I was learning. I just kept going and going and going.
Yeah.
And then that's the whole thing too, with this plant medicine and ayahuasca, and everyone's getting into like all this combo, and combo's not really fun, but like
I don't know what
there's
that
a
is.
lot of
What is
it's
that?
it's and now there's practitioners out there that
Oh,
would just serve without being grandfathered into it and taught the right way from indigenous or handed down. But same with ayahuasca. But like, combo is you burn 3 to 6 spots wherever, just surface burns, and you put the combo frog, tree frog poison in there, and what it does is it detoxes your organs, but it
mhm.
also detoxes your spirit as well. So I forget, I'm not, since this is broadcast, I'm not going to say where, but I know it's not in America, it's an
Yeah.
indigenous practice. And kids would be walking around with points, because you could also use it for just a detox. What it does is it swells your organs, and all that plaque that has lived your whole life in your organs, that's what you're purging. And that's old stories, because the body keeps the score, right? So there's energetic stuck stuff in our sacral where our creative safe area is, so you could get into the chakras too. So there's so much power behind combo, but there's the other side of it where it's being used and abused ish, you know?
Sure. Yeah.
So just go in where you feel safe. Like you were saying, if it feels good, but it's an edge, you just really know yourself to know where to go. So now I'm like more in like my calling or my purpose as a man, because that's what drives a man, is a purpose. And a lot of men don't know their purpose. So that's another thing we tap into. But my purpose isn't to be an influencer and for everyone to hear me, at least right now. My purpose is to course correct what I've already done in a wrong way to anybody in my life. Right now, I'm working on my relationship. I'm working on my relationship on how I talk to myself. I don't like, it's just, so it doesn't have to be this grandiose like purpose and I'm gonna make the next Facebook, I'm gonna make Instagram, I'm gonna a bunch of houses. Like it could be very much like in your bubble, and mine is being a good father and husband and friend and course correcting that to make it a little more potent. And I think everything else as a leader that I travel and teach and finance, all my pillars will fall into place. So that's been my purpose, is to create a safe space as a man for the feminine and children. So it doesn't have to be a potent, like really crazy purpose. So that's where I'm at. And like my next thing is, my edge is going into a wilderness with rising men. And I haven't really talked to a Jedi yet, but and fasting and for 2 to 3 days and sitting around the fire with men. Me not eating even one meal is weird, so it's an edge. But like my next step is me, like what am I? And I'm with myself. I've done a lot of work with Sacred Sons, and I'm working a little bit with the East Coast men's group, Modern Renaissance Men, and they're just like, it's good group men, and I'll keep that. But I feel like this experience for me is the next step. So it just depends on where you're at in your journey and knowing who you are.
That's incredible. I love to hear that. I mean, I think it's honestly just so refreshing being able to talk to, a man, that's just even willing to kind of go there and just even speak about these things. One of the things that I just listened to you say that you were talking about was, the way that you speak to yourself. And I know you and I have had this conversation as far as imposter syndrome goes, because, I mean, I think that's what, like, it took me so long to even get to start this. And I remember, because when we were even trying to set up a date, you called me on it and you're like, are you procrastinating? Like, we just need to do this, because I was so worried about everything being perfect and how I was being perceived. And I realized too, that was one of the things that I've had to work through is, why am I doing this? Like, what is my purpose for doing this? Is this for me? Is this for my ego? But when it came down to it, and I sort of just adjusted my thoughts, and it was just like, I know you and I talked about this, but I had this really powerful conversation with my brother, and he asked me, what story do you want to tell with your life? And that's where all of this sort of started to come from. And, immediately I thought about, like, okay, well, what's my career? Which direction am I going in, and all these, different kinds of things. But I realized that having these conversations has just been so impactful for me personally. And I wanted other people to hear these stories, because I'm like, this can help somebody. If you can reach one guy out there that's just like struggling, that's just like, I'm hurting right now, and I have this huge brick wall, but like, I'm ready to let it down. And just helping somebody find the courage to just get out of their comfort zone and do something that's new. But as far as imposter syndrome goes, I was just, and I know you kind of, we talked about this a while ago, but that was just something that I struggled with, because I I didn't feel like I was worthy enough to do something like this or have the courage to be able to do something like this. And but changing my perspective to why do I want to do this in the first place? And it came down to just helping people. And so, I mean, but what does imposter syndrome look like? What's that look like for you, and getting past that or moving around that?
So yeah, I'm right there with you on a lot of my journey, and a lot of things I would love to say or post, because this is the day and age we're in, or even just a communication with my wife or like friends or coworkers. There's a lot of times I do, and I practice the active listening too. So I'm like, so the imposter syndrome is real. It's the matter of when I let it take over versus is it taking over. So meaning like I've done a lot of work lately with my coach on imposter syndrome because it was a coaching program. We had a cohort. It's called Intentional Impact with Jose. And he part of Modern Renaissance Man, and he really helped us men in this cohort. It was like, I've done it twice. The last time was like 12 men, and we would do the Zoom call, and we got to really dive in on the modules throughout the week that we do. And imposter syndrome, for me, listening to other men's stories. So like, this is very potent to like talk about it because I got a chance to use some other men's tools on how they like navigate through imposter syndrome. And it's, for me, it still comes up. It really does. Even hair, not even like this conscious or mindfulness. It's in hair too, as I'm teaching years. And I have the opportunity to teach at IBS in a classroom. And that's big. Like a lot of artists are in there, and it's just like, oh, imposter syndrome for real, right?
Right.
I'm teaching. And so how I get through it is I have to give the two shits vibe.
Yeah.
Like, I just give the two shits vibe. Even stepping up and saying yes to this podcast, it's just the two shits vibe. Like, it's me.
Yeah.
I really have to and just like, straight up say like, win some, you lose some. This is me. Yeah. If I really get into the conversation with myself, it's like, I know I honestly will focus on the people that don't vibe with me and just focus on them, like in my head, and pretend like they're right there. And I'm like, well, that's maybe hopefully someday down the road, you'll find somebody you could vibe with. But this is what I do. And this is what I'm going to say. In some cases, if it's a quick conversation, that's when I'm like, is it taken over or not? And I just kind of just opt out and just active listening, because it just reminds me of listening, because I don't always have to say something or teach something or always be that person. So it kind of ends up acting as a tool. Like if I check into my imposter syndrome, one of the check-ins is like, am I overly, again, like our weaknesses, I learned a long time ago, a lot of my weaknesses I thought could very much be my power and my superpower. So for instance, I like to talk, and I got a career where I could talk. And before, I used to talk about certain things that maybe weren't really good subjects, whatever, but I fine-tuned my weakness into, now I'm doing interviews and like I'm talking, I'm teaching. So it turns into a tool and part of my journey that I get to express myself. So I look at some of these things that I'm like, oh, I want to get away with, and I just don't want in my life. Maybe check with like imposter syndrome. And I'm like, okay, this opportunity to check in. And one of my check offs is like, maybe I do need to just listen to this person right now and just be there and hold, versus like am I gonna say this? And I have like, I know this part, I just saw a guru say this, and I want to tell this, and I want to share it, because my intention is like, I want to share it and love and like give it to them.
Right. And you want to help. Yeah.
help. So that's the other part of it, is like, if it feels and it tingles me and I'm like, oh my gosh, I do want to share this, then I share it. And then it's not,
Absolutely.
so yeah, those are kind of the tools, or how I talk to myself through it. And then the
Yeah.
times imposter syndrome strikes, it strikes, and it's okay.
There's
And then
nothing you can do about it. I mean,
is what
sometimes
it
it just happens. Yeah. You just kind of have to like roll with the punches. Yeah, no, I definitely feel that. I mean, I think that's interesting too. It's what you were just kind of talking about. One of my biggest pet peeves is unsolicited advice. I know I have been so guilty of giving it. And so now I just try to be mindful of just asking, are you wanting me to listen, or are you asking me for advice? Just asking, permission. But I think that is just so important, is just holding space, because, we always, and again, it's always, I don't know if you can relate to this, but I feel like when you are giving your advice, it's sometimes a projection of yourself and what you're doing. And it's not even really applicable for the person that you're even talking to. And they're just like, okay, thanks for that, I guess, type of thing. And so, yeah, that's really interesting. So as far as like all of the work that you've done, I definitely, at the end of this, I want to find out, the places that you've gone, the retreats that you've done and everything like that. But what has been, what's been some of your biggest takeaways from your healing journey? I mean, what are the things that you feel like you've just like really overcome that you're still working on, or something that you can just put out there just to like encourage other men?
Wow, that's a good question. Let me. Hmm. Yeah. So the takeaway is, I feel more involved in what I do. I feel more joy in what I do. I feel more um, intimacy in what I do. I feel more relations in what I do. I feel more. I just feel, I feel the what life really is, even when it's hard. Instead of going down the slippery slope of victim or depression or whatever it might be, I'm able to reverse in most cases and just feel it and let it go. And it's not mine. Most cases, it's not mine. In some cases, if it's mine, I get to find a solution.
Yeah.
So I've learned these tools. So the takeaway for me is just to feel and use these tools and continue to build this me that I know I am. Like, those thoughts are good. Everyone has them. Like, you're the best. Even if you don't talk good to yourself, like, even when you were like 3 years old and you were kicking ass, jumping off couches and shit, like
Sure.
that feel good, like that, and being more present with, that I feel like, and having kids is totally like brings you back. It helps you with that exercise of going back to childhood wounds and stuff. But to be able to feel is the takeaway of, and being present is a big takeaway for me.
That's awesome. I also want to ask you if you could say anything to anybody that's listening, as far as everything that you went through before you started your healing journey, before you actually started to want to make changes. What is a piece of advice that you could give somebody who's listening that's just really struggling with, being stuck in a cycle? What's a tool you would give?
So for me, it definitely is checking into what is happening up here and just breathe, and then eventually goes down to here. People say, or a lot of the men in places and spaces I've been in, they say the longest journey for a man is from here to here. And because the masculine energy is do, fix, and get it going and figure it out, right? So it's a lot of headstrong. In America is that way. A lot of our verbiage is like, we say head stuff instead of heart
Yeah.
stuff. And so I would say breathe it in and just be patient before reacting. And that's a tool that I like to use. And then another thing I would have told myself, now that I'm in this part, I'm not at the other side of this journey. I'm just in this part of the journey, to where I realized a little bit more than when I first started, is that it's here. Everything I need, I'm my guru. I'm my God. I'm my goddess. I'm my heavenly father. I'm my deacon. I'm me. And it's in. And so the work is tapping into that. And like what I was saying, flying off the couch at 3, tap that joy or whatever for you, is what I would tell myself when I'm first starting, or any part of my journey, is like, I remind myself that it's here. I have the answer. No one else does.
Yeah. That's so freaking good. I think that people forget that it's like, we're so conditioned to seek outside validation or, direction, but we never, not never, but a majority of the time we aren't looking within, we aren't looking to ourselves. It's we're not trusting ourselves enough. You know what I mean? And I think that's something that's just so huge. I've definitely kind of learned the same thing. And I mean, that's just so powerful. This is awesome. I'm so glad that we're here and we got to talk about this. Is there anything else that you would want to share?
Not really. I feel like we hit pretty, I mean, this is chapter 1. I feel like we could, a couple years down the road, we could open up another segment of righteousness or whatever you want to call it. Fun. But I just want to remind myself and everyone else that there's a fine line in a lot of things, but it ultimately ends up, it's your journey, your life, and how you are. And so if you like high fashion, wear it. Doesn't mean it's who I am. If everyone took away my fashion, anybody took away my fashion, I'm still who I am. So if you check in with whatever you're doing that may be surface, and if you could live without it and still be a kick-ass person and loving and full of joy, then you're good. Like, there's nothing to worry about what other people say. Like, even my wife, she's on the other side of this, doing her work, and she's an amazing goddess, and she holds space so well. And her giving birth and stuff, that could be a whole nother conversation, but she's the most powerful person I know. And she still every once in a while will say, because we're human, and like, why do you like Gucci? And I'm just what I like. And I'm still, if anything, I'm a evolved better me. So that's all I got to say, is just do you and make sure it's authentic.
Yeah. Heck yeah. I'm going to high five you. Okay. So my last question, are you ready for this? I'm not going to ask you about toilet paper. But what is your most irrational fear?
Oh my gosh. So I don't
I've heard
know.
some very funny answers to this question.
Now,
really?
I could tell you had in the past, because like I said, I really do try working on living on my edge. So I'm like, oh, afraid of that? Cool. I'm gonna hold a snake, or see, even that's a fear, but like I've done it. But it's not playing it and keep doing it. I just do it. But when I was younger, it was, I don't want to say the wrong word, but like little people, or
no, that's politically correct. Yeah.
I'm like, just humans that are smaller, but like
well, Earl, thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for being my first guest. One of the things that I just want to say is I am so grateful for your friendship, and just who you are as a person has just really inspired me. And throughout this whole process of even getting here to filming this first thing, I know that I was really nervous and like freaked out, but you very subtly like pushed me in the right direction. So thank you for that. But I can't wait to do this again at another time. And obviously we're always evolving and growing, and there's different chapters in our life. And I can't wait to see everything that you do. You're hands down one of the most incredible people that I know, and I'm just really thankful for you. So thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you for putting this together and going to your edge. This is a gift that is much needed. I'm glad that I'm able to be part of it, and I'm 100% a supporter and will be from here on out. And our has always been amazing, and even though it's hit and miss and just spread out, it's like we never miss a beat, and I love that. I feel like there's more of a core friendship there, and there's more room for growth. So thank you for being my friend and inviting.
Oh my gosh, thank you. Cool. All right, well, I'm going to plug in also to your information, and I think it'd be, I do want to plug in what you were talking about as far as the men's retreats go and things like that, because I think, who knows, people could be really into that, and I think it's super important. So yeah.
Okay, cool.
All right. Thank you, Earl.
You.
Bye.
Yeah.